All right. Well, welcome to our office hours. This week's is focused on rebuttal, but you can also ask just general questions about the BEAD program. We have folks here from CTC who are our partners for program administration for BEAD, and also we have representatives from Ready. So if you have questions about how to do something in the portal, Clay is here to help with that. My name is Laura Sasaki. I'm one of the program and project supervisors here in the BEAD branch. And we'll just kind of go through, for those of you who might be new to the process, we'll go through some of the housekeeping items, and then we'll get into our questions and answers. So next slide. Okay, so the way that we do this is if you have a question, please put it in the chat. It'll help us get through the first round of questions and also kind of keep track of who submitted questions in which order. We may need some clarification, and so in that case, I might ask you to unmute yourself and add some additional clarification. We'll go through a first round of questions, and then after everybody has had a chance to ask their questions, we'll then go back through for another round. So if you have follow-up on something that somebody else has asked, please just note that in chat, and then we'll come back around to that as well. Next slide. So how does this work? This is essentially an opportunity for you guys to ask us at the CPUC questions about the challenge process in general, the BEAD program, or specifically today, the rebuttal process. We can't provide review or specific feedback on evidence outside of the challenge process, but we can provide guidance. We do not pretend to have all of the answers. We will let you know if we do need to take something back, discuss it, and then we'll get back to you. CPUC is required to follow all of the rules of the BEAD program. NTIA administers the program, and so it is pretty prescriptive, as some of you know. Questions and answers from this meeting will be posted on our website, and we're also recording this, and it will be posted as well. So with that, let's go ahead and take the slides down and see if folks have questions that they'd like to put in chat. Okay, thank you, Michelle. So first question, for availability rebuttals, the user guide, pages 9 and 10, has codes 1 through 9 that explains the type of evidence that needs to be provided. But the challenges to service doesn't include that information. Michelle, can you come off mute and just kind of clarify what the question is or what you're looking for there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, so in the user guide on those pages, it specifically has those codes that say, like, for an example, number 6, provider doesn't offer the speed shown, and then it says, what types of evidence, meaning if the evidence was a screenshot and believed to be an error, then, you would provide a new screenshot. But when we look at our challenges to service, it doesn't go into that type of detail. It just says you had challenges to your service. And it doesn't say any of those codes. So we just want to make sure that we are gathering the correct type of evidence, right? So we're like, should we use redacted bills? Should we use marketing screenshots? So I'm just trying to check to make sure we're gathering the right type of evidence.
Great question. Thank you for that. Liz, can I ask you to step in on answering that one?
Sure. I mean, if you're a fixed wireless provider, there's a certain template that needs to be provided that's associated with that. If not, if you are a wireline provider, you can provide bills, any kind of plant build or plant where your existing coverage is. Basically, yeah, bills would be great. Anything that we can directly look at from your website or anything like that. But I don't know if you guys are fixed wireless or not, because I can go on 2 different paths with this.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're not fixed
Okay.
wireless. This is So we're an ISP. So I guess my question is like I mean, it was very specific in the user guide that like if it was a screenshot, then you should use a screenshot. So I guess my question is, do I follow that, or we just what we did before is if we had a customer, we had redacted bills. If it wasn't a customer, we use marketing screenshots. And then if we could also provide a strand map, which is like a network map, we
That's
tried.
exactly, those are all acceptable types of evidence.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Wonderful question, Michelle. I'm sure you're not the only one that had that question. Okay, so got two Kens going here. Ken 1, we were challenged on locations where the fabric address doesn't match the actual USPS address. We do serve the location under the true USP address. To successfully rebut this challenge, can we provide evidence using the correct address that the location coordinates reference rather than the fabric address listed in the challenge? Additionally, can we supply a network map showing existing, I don't know what HFC is, but I know that people here do, fiber service to support single location or MDU challenges, demonstrating coverage for all units of NDUs. I think we've got two pieces to this. Amy, if you're able to respond to specifically the piece of the addresses, USPS versus BSLs, which are actually what we're challenged. And then Liz, if I could have you step in on the second part of this about the evidence.
Okay, I might need a little bit more information first on the address, but I think there's a good example there. And I think, so one, the underlying fabric itself cannot be challenged. So if the address is slightly incorrect, I think it needs to be noted in your challenge that one address is represented, but really this is the only true address at that location. And here is our billing statement, screenshot, et cetera, that shows that. And that is, you know, that would be sufficient. Ultimately, you know, ultimately there probably needs to be either a fix at the FCC on the fabric level issue. That cannot be done through the challenge process, which is, I think, what you wanted me to say here. Or what can be done is changing that service, that service identification from served to unserved or underserved, or vice versa, from unserved or underserved to served. So, so hopefully that was slightly helpful for the first part.
And I'm going to pause and actually, Ken Burgess, if you can just let us know, did that address the first part of it? We're going to talk a little bit more about the evidence, but.
Yeah, I think it did. So we have this in a few different cases, right? So I think the cost quest data is just not actually aligning to the proper data shown for us, showing us, sir. So we just want to make sure that if we do decide to challenge or provide the rebuttal, that, you know, we're going about the proper way. Obviously, we'll have, you know, billing addresses. We can do flow down screenshots of served addresses within the MDU, and also can give network mapping as well.
Okay, excellent. And then Liz, can we talk a little bit about the evidence that they suggested there at the bottom, which is, can we supply network map showing existing HFC fiber service to support single location or MDU challenge, demonstrating coverage for all units within the MDU?
Yes, the short answer is yes. HFC is hybrid fiber coax. Just another acronym for you to remember, Laura. But yeah, it's going to be helpful because you're going to want to tie in your evidence from the second part of this question into the first part. Because if we're not seeing the address as reviewers that is in there, we're going to address mismatch it unless you call it out for us on them. If you're going to show us a map or show us the wiring for an MDU or anything like that, you're going to need to call those addresses specifically and call them to where there's a mismatch in the fabric. But yes, the network map is perfect. And any other kind of evidence, as we stated before, billing screenshots or anything like that work as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I do want to note too is that if you do need to provide context to what evidence you are submitting for rebuttals, you can provide an upload. You can PDF a Word document that is a narrative of what's accompanying the rebuttal. So if you do need to add additional information or context, feel free to do it that way as well. You'll still need the evidence, but if there's something that we need to know when we're reviewing, that's another way to do it. So Ken Garnett, we've received many challenges in the download portal challenge data where a different entity or no entity is listed as the challenged entity. How do we just ignore those? Ken, I'm going to ask you to come off mute there. I think we might have a combination here of talking with Clay at Ready, but also want to understand a little bit more kind of what you're seeing.
Well, basically what I'm seeing is there's a column in the CSV file that's downloaded. It says challenged entity. And our company name is listed on many rows in that column. But other company names are also listed in that column. Like, I'll just give you some examples. Citizens Telecom, Consolidated, and Ponderosa, and so on. And there's also several thousand rows where there's no entity at all listed. So I'm wondering, why did we receive those in our download? Because it's not our company. Our company is Cal.net.
Right. Clay, I think that might be a question for you. And Ken, we may need to take this one back and do some like additional investigating. But Clay, I don't know if you're able on the back end to kind of take a look at that, or just if you have a thought off the top of your head about why that's showing up that way.
Yeah. So I am going to take a look in the back end as well, just to confirm that everything is represented properly. But when it comes to the challenges that are showing up in your portal, depending on the challenge type, some of them may not have like a directly challenged entity. So for example, if there's a planned or existing service or new CAI, that would show up as a rebuttable challenge, even though it's not directed towards a specific entity. So that's something that any entity can participate in.
And I think, Clay, the other question there was, it sounds like that there were potentially other companies that were showing up as, Ken, was it the challenged entity or the challenger?
Challenged entity.
Okay, so it's the challenged entity. So
Challenged entity.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me look into that for just a moment, and I'll circle back on that one.
Okay.
I'll just do a hand raise whenever I've found what I. Okay.
So Ken, if we can get you, excuse me, an answer to that today, we will. If we need to go dig a little bit, we'll definitely reach out to you via email as well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Excuse me, guys, I got like a little tickle. Michelle, so Andrew, it looks like you're on, so I think the answer to that is yes, we're on. Michelle, question for business service only challenges. Oh joy, our user guide, right? The user guide says provider documentation that the service listed on the BDC is available at the location and marked to residential customers. Can you explain what that process is? I think that's a Liz question.
Okay, so I guess this is a business service only. That's a challenge where the Fabric has both business and residential, but the ISP is only offering business service. And so in order to prove that, you would have to get evidence potentially from a website or something of that sort, of that ISP. Can we use the same evidence? Okay, so if you're the ISP, then yes, you can use spills or screenshots from your system, yes.
Oh,
as-
wait, all right, let's go back to Michelle. I want to make sure that we answered that part of the question.
Oh, yeah, I jumped over and tried to answer somebody else's. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I'm not sure we got quite to where you were going with that, Michelle. Do you want to ask anything to clarify that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, that's what it says in the user guide. So I don't understand quite what that means. I mean, we can easily get, redacted bills or marketing screenshots, but I was just trying to follow the rules and I was trying to figure out what that meant. Like I'm assuming that means to try to change it on the actual map itself. Is that what that means?
That's what it means. That the map had that BSL location as both business and residential, and what the challenge did was want it to be only business on the map.
Right.
And if you're the person who got challenged and you want to show that there's residential service, then you need to show something that, like a bill or something that proves that you serve residential service there as well.
Okay, so we could use a redacted bill as evidence is what I'm asking. Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So Liz, now we're on to Ken's.
Sorry.
Oh, hey, Clay. Clay has something to add. What'd you find?
Yes. So let me share my screen just real quick. And so this is Ken Garrett's question. So let me pull this up. All right, so I think, and let me know if this doesn't answer your question, but there's two different categories that should be shown up on your dashboard. So I'm in a test environment that's showing a test ISP, and we're in the rebuttal phase. And so this tab here, challenges received, these would be challenges against the service that you offer. And there's a second category that's also exportable, which is open for rebuttal. So you see here, these are the three challenges that fall into the challenge received category. But there's this fourth one that's a planned service that is open for anybody to rebut. So when you export this one, you will see data from other providers if it is directed towards a provider. But if you export these, you should only be seeing challenges against your entity with the specific categories that you would need to respond to.
Oh, okay, well, that helps too.
Good.
I exported the open for rebuttal list and not the challenges received list. I thought that one was contained within the other.
Yeah. So the open for rebuttal should contain your challenges received. But if you just want your challenges, then that would be this export here.
All right.
Thank you.
That's helpful. I'll try that again and see what turns up.
And Ken, if you continue to have any issues with it, just email us at the BEAD inbox, and we'll turn that one around as quickly as we can. But that's a really good point, and thank you for bringing that up, because I'm sure that other folks are probably wondering the same thing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Ken Burgess. We received availability challenges citing the following reasons. The provider does not offer the speeds listed on the broadband map for purchase at this location. The provider does not offer the specified technology at this location. Can we use the same evidence, network maps or bills and screenshots from our customer buy flow to address both of these challenge reasons? So Phil or Liz?
I'll start out. If you're fixed wireless, you need to fill out the template, the fixed wireless template. If you are wireline, then certainly bills and screenshots from your customer buy flow would work.
Okay, and just to clarify, that would address both of those categories, right?
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Andrew, Kenan asked earlier about the served address location or address challenge fabric. Boy, you're making me read some words here. Alphanumeric addresses versus USPS address. Mentioned that the California Broadband Office would be looking for redacted copies of customer bills. The address in question is an MDU with more than 250 doors. Would we be looking for all bills or a sample of all bills? Phil and Liz, evidence.
Bill, go for it.
Yeah, I'll thank you, Liz, for forwarding the tough ones on to me. I presume Ken was asking about potentially an MDU challenge, and if you basically are going to be responding to that, do you have to provide evidence for all of the locations within the particular MDU? Is that correct?
Correct. So initially, I think it was the very first question, Ken had asked about a certain address. The Fabric address is 2803 Main Street. The USPS address and our internal billing system address is 2801 Main Street. So obviously we can provide the network maps, all the other stuff. Unfortunately, this was when I got cut off, so I didn't get to hear some of the response. But he said you'd be looking for 3 pieces of evidence: bills, network map, and screenshot. And for an MDU, especially, this is a very large MDU. Would you want bills from all the customers, a sample of customers, one customer? We're just trying to get a feel for how much evidence would be appropriate, especially given the size of this one.
Right, and that is an excellent question, Andrew. There is guidance in the IPv1 as to the acceptable level of evidence to rebut an MDU challenge. And unfortunately, if it is an MDU challenge, the larger the MDU, the more evidence that you're going to have to provide. And I think it is, unless I'm mistaken, it is clearly defined in the IPv1 the level of evidence that is provided for an MDU challenge. All of the items that are mentioned there in terms of copies of redacted copies of bills, proof that the service is available to every single unit, those are all items that we would be looking for in a rebuttal of that nature. And we can certainly post that information in our Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, just following up, Amy, thank you for posting that in there. I didn't want to go to that level of detail, but it is in the IPv1 in terms of the level of evidence.
You just wanted me to be the bearer of fun news.
Yeah, I knew what the answer was, but I wanted to make sure the IPv1 was referenced. There is a pretty substantial requirement for evidence on an MDU challenge. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, not necessarily what we'd like to hear, but it's good to understand.
Great. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then Frenny, just for everyone attending today, Frenny did link the IPv1 there. So if you do want to take a look at some of the types of evidence for rebuttals, you can find it there. I know you guys have more questions, so I'm just going to sit and wait for a little bit. Good to hear, Michelle. That's why we have office hours, because it's, you know, emailing back and forth is not always the best, and sometimes talking it through and also, you know, seeing what it looks like in real life. Would it be helpful, and you guys can just kind of give me a thumbs up, to have Clay walk through submitting a rebuttal in the portal? We've got time to do that. Okay. All caps. Clay, can we go ahead and walk through submitting a rebuttal in the portal, and maybe pick a category that we've seen the most challenges come in?
Sure. Let's do that. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So you'll notice when you log back in, again, we're in the same kind of environment persona. This is a test ISP. So I have this preloaded with a couple of examples. So availability is probably one of the more common ones that we see. Business service only is probably a little bit less common. So we'll show an availability. So you can go in and you can see the challenges that you've received. So when you click into view details, this is when it will hone in on the map. You're going to see some details, who submitted the challenge, when, challenge type, and challenge type description, as well as the challenged entity and technology, and their reason. So you can look at these individual locations, download the CSV with the location IDs in case you want to check against your own records and CostQuest license data. But when you want to rebut, you click on this rebuttals page and click submit rebuttal now. So the first step in this is to select the locations where you do want to submit a rebuttal. So for instance, if these first three, I'm accepting that I do not, in fact, provide service at these locations, I would turn them off, which will show agree. So you're saying, I agree with these challenges. I'm not going to submit any evidence. For the rest of these, I am going to submit some evidence. So in your next phase, we have a template here that can be downloaded for the evidence mapping. And when you see that template, you'll see the location ID, as well as an evidence mapping field. So for whatever you upload for each location, those file names you'd map back to the file, as well as the description. There's also some other details as far as like the size of file uploads that you can submit here. We recommend packaging it all into a zip file. So after you finish the evidence mapping, you would go through, fill that in, and then add in your evidence for each location. So we'd add those in and then provide a brief description. So obviously you'll have more details because these are your service locations and you probably have an explanation, but I'll say, here's my evidence. And that's it. You get to the last page, sign the attestation that the evidence that you've submitted is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, and you will submit the rebuttal. At the top of the screen here, you'll see each of those files upload, and when you get the successful notification, upon returning to your dashboard, this will be populated in your rebutted challenges, and you'll have a status update of where those are. Is there anything else that we want to take a look at or focus in on?
I'll actually open it up to folks if you want to come off mute and ask if there's something specific that you want to see while we have this up. Okay, I think we're good for right now, Clay. Probably we'll have more questions next week as people get deeper into rebuttals and stuff like that.
Sure.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, just if anybody thinks of any questions, and otherwise we'll kind of move on to wrapping up. Okay, Mitzi's got a question. Can you explain the difference for challenges received and open for rebuttal? We don't have any challenges, but there are rebuttals. Mitzi, I might ask you to explain that a little bit more for us so that we can, oh, wait, Clay, do you have an answer?
Good. I don't have much to say, so take it away, Clay. Thanks.
Yeah. So challenges received are if you're an internet service provider, it's challenges against like your entity. So someone has whatever was represented on the map. They've said actually there isn't service here, or it's business service only. So those would be your challenges received. Open for rebuttal, that's where the category expands a bit. So there's a couple of different challenge types, such as planned or existing service, that are open for any of the eligible challenging entities to file evidence against or for. Does that help clarify?
Slightly. I just need to actually go in and dig around and mull it over. Yeah. So kind of, but I appreciate the effort. It makes more sense than it did. So thank you, Clay.
Well, of course, and you know, I think quickly it's so if we see challenges received, so this let me make sure I'm in the right org. Yeah, okay. So I'm a test ISP. My ISP has an identifier, and so these challenges received are 4 locations that match the identifier of the ISP. So I am the ISP. These are 2 of my addresses, or broadband serviceable locations. And so these are open for me to directly rebut. But if I switch to a nonprofit, for example, and I go into the dashboard, I'm not going to have any challenges received. But what I will see is this existing service challenge that is open for rebuttal. So if I'm a nonprofit, this is in one of my areas, and I go in and view those details, I'll see that someone has submitted an existing service challenge for these locations. And upon reviewing the evidence and what's there, if I have some evidence that, in fact, these locations are not served, then I would go in and rebut these.
So just to add to that, I think where we're at is for planned service, existing service being kind of a subset of that, and enforceable commitment challenges, any permissible challenger can submit a rebuttal. So that's why it's in that category of like, hey, these are all of the planned service or enforceable commitment challenges that are out there. If you want to submit a rebuttal as any type of permissible challenger, you can. As a broadband service provider, you're the only ones that can submit rebuttals against your challenge service. So that's that first bucket. The second bucket is literally for everybody else that that can submit a rebuttal against planned service or enforceable commitments.
Yep.
Does that help? It looks like that's a yes, Mitzi.
Thank you. Yes, very good. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. That was a very good question. All right, well, just a reminder that we will be here next Thursday too, as you get further into the rebuttal phase. So, you know, feel free to come back and ask additional questions of us. I'm going to kind of move towards sort of wrapping things up, but feel free, if you think of something as I'm talking, go ahead and put that in there. We'll answer the questions if we can. So, next slide. So as of right now, we don't have any additional webinars planned, but we are doing office hours every Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. Through the close of the rebuttal phase. And so that's September 19th. And after that, we go into final determination. And that's where we have to adjudicate all of the challenges that and rebuttals that have come in. So we'll be heads down on doing that. But up until then, we'll be having office hours, so you can come and ask questions again about rebuttal process. If you just have questions about the BEAD program in general, or any other components of it, please feel free to come and bring those questions to us. We'll do our best to answer them. I think most of you probably were able to sign up for some or all of the events. You have the opportunity to do that on the events page. We do have email updates and blasts that go out. We're probably averaging at about 2 a week, just because there's so many moving parts and so much that is changing. So we use that pretty heavily to let folks know about what is going on with the program. And so you'll want to make sure that you're on that mailing list. A lot of you have already taken advantage of the Ready's help desk if there's issues with the portal, whether it's logging in or technical support or that sort of thing. For any questions about the BEAD program in general, you can email us here at the CPUC, bead@cpuc.ca.gov. And then we have some additional resources that we always link there as well. So this recording will be posted up on our website. We're running a little bit behind, but just wanted to let you know that we are working as quickly as possible to get up there. And we just really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and ask the questions, so that we're making this the best version of California's BEAD challenge process that we can. So it's hugely dependent on you. So a big thank you to all of you. So we will go ahead and wrap up, and hope to see most of you probably next week. Thank you.